Good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of The Message. I'm your host, the Knowledge King. We'll spend this next hour with one purpose in mind, and that one purpose is delivering the message that God is Almighty. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, is a piece of God. Everything that ever was, is now, or ever will be, was made by God. Everything that ever happened, is happening right now, or ever will happen, was made to happen by God. God is the master plan for all time and all creation. God is Almighty. The message is brought to you by, is produced by the Society of Knowledge Incorporated. The Society is an interdenominational, religious, spiritual ministry. Our members come from various different religious and spiritual backgrounds. We have various different religious and spiritual beliefs. Although we come from different backgrounds and have different beliefs, there's one belief that we share. There's one piece of knowledge that we hold in common. And that's the knowledge that there is a being. By no matter what name we may have been taught to call that being, by no matter what name we may have come to know that being, whether that name be God, Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, Jehovah, Buddha, nature, by no matter what name, we know that there is a being that possesses not some of the power, not most of the power, but all of the power. That's the reason we do this show, and the only reason we do this show, to deliver the message that that being that personally I call God, that being is indeed Almighty. Today is August the 13th, 2020. We have things a little bit different tonight. I want to welcome all of you that are watching. And I don't know if we were having some technical difficulty with getting our Facebook live stream going, and I think we still might be having difficulty getting that going. But in the meantime, we are up on Zoom, and we have our panel members. I want to welcome our panel members. We have Bishop Milton. Good evening, Bishop. And Messenger Ryan. Good evening, Messenger.
Good evening.
All right. Let's go through our announcements, and then we'll get into our discussion topic. And let's say things a little bit different this evening than they've been for the past few months. And what's different is we're back in the TV studio. So we're trying to make some adjustments and get things going with our technology. And, we're just trying to iron out some of the kinks with our technology. But as we do that, we'll continue with our discussion. And let's see, we have another panel member joining us this evening. And, all right. Good evening, Bishop. Yeah, Bishop Wendy Me. All right, we don't have his, we don't have your sound, Bishop. All right, while we wait for the bishop to get his sound together, let's go through our. Okay, now it sounds. Okay, Bishop, we're gonna come back to you in a minute, Bishop. Let's see if we can get our. All right. Well, now, as I say, and we're working through this, and look like we have. All right. Those of you that are watching by Facebook, you see what we're doing now. We're trying to get things straight here, and for some reason, and our panel members. All right. All right. For some reason, Facebook is popping back up. I said we're working through this. All right, let's see. Okay. All right, so we're back with Zoom, and Bishop Me, are you there now?
Yes, sir. I'm here. How you doing?
I'm doing good. All right, let's see if we can go get our announcements out of the way, and then after that we'll come into our panel discussion. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Hey. All right.
All right. All right, let's say today is August the 13th. And let's see if we can come up and do a little something about. All right. We'll have our announcements, then our testimonies, our religious spiritual study, prove all things, hold fast that which is good. Come out first book of Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 21. Discussion topic tonight, are you afraid of God? After that, we'll have our words of inspiration, which I doubt that we're going to get to, but if we do, it'll come out the book of Exodus chapter 9 verses 20 through 35. Our announcements, that's our main webpage, www.godisalmighty.org. I invite you all to go to that webpage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are links to all of our social media platforms. So I invite you to go there and check that out. The message today, or tonight rather, is coming out of the city of New Orleans, but on the first and third Sundays at 9 p.m., the message will be delivered by Messenger Ryan King and Messenger Corey Levier on Facebook Live at The Messenger. And that show comes out of the Lafayette, Louisiana Center of the Society of Knowledge, Inc. Imani Temple number 49 of the African American Catholic Congregation, Bishop John W. Milton, one of our panel members. He's the pastor of Imani Temple number 49. That's located at 201 East Willow Street in the city of Lafayette. Imani Temple number 28 of the African American Catholic Congregation, as presided over by Bishop Wendy Mee. Bishop Mee is also a member of the panel, and that's located in the city of New Orleans, 2411 Treasure Street in the city of New Orleans. Our condolences go out to the Williams family, Mrs. Carrie Ann Williams, March 30th, 1952 to August 8th, 2020. Mrs. Williams is the mother of Messenger Corey Williams. Her services will be tomorrow in the city of Opelousas. So our condolences go out to the Williams family, and we sending all of our prayers and support to Messenger Corey Williams in his time of bereavement. Religious spiritual study, prove all things, hold fast that which is good, coming out of Facebook Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 21. And our topic tonight is, are you afraid of God? See, we've been also joined by Victor on our panel. Welcome, Victor. I'm going to ask if you would turn your video on, so we'll be able to, everyone will be able to share. And what I'm doing now, panel members, you see what I'm doing. I'm going through, trying to see if we can get that going back through Facebook. For some reason tonight, and it might be because we're in the TV studio, but we're gonna continue to try, give it a good old try. All right, and it's saying, okay, broadcast error, and I think I might know what the problem is, so I'm gonna try something. All right, I'm going to try something. Just work with this technology just a minute here. And I know panel members, as most of us spoke a little bit earlier today, that we have a limited amount of time in the studio. So our broadcast tonight, we're going to have to make some adjustments. But let's see now if we can. Let's see if we can get into it now. Okay. All right, I'm gonna give it one more try here. All right. And as I found out this evening, that we will only be, if we return to the studio, we will only be in the studio once a month. And it's still coming up with a broadcast error. So it may be something in the studio that's interfering with us going live on Facebook. And if that's the case, we won't have to worry about this too much in the future. All right, panel, welcome. Good evening. Let's open up the discussion, and if we can, just get a yes or no answer, and then we'll go around the panel. And since we have Bishop Milton on the screen, then we'll have Messenger Ryan, and then Bishop me. So if we'll just start, gentlemen, I'm going to ask if you just a one-word response, yes or no. Are you afraid of God? Bishop Milton.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. All right. Messenger Ryan.
No.
Bishop me.
No.
Okay. All right.
What about you? What about you?
But yeah, okay. I'm not going to try to skip. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. All right. So we have Bishop Milton, and you were up in the order of rotation, okay? And I'm going to see if I can focus the camera, and that's what I'm going to try to do. If I can learn how to do this. All right. Okay. Bishop Milton, you said yes, you are afraid of God.
I am afraid of God. I am afraid of God, however, and the reason I may differ from the three of you is they set the definition of being afraid of God. We see in the Bible that fear the Lord is referenced over nearly 150 times. And this notion of a reverential awe, this notion of understanding the magnitude of what we're dealing with when we speak of an all-powerful, omnipotent being. Although classified, cased in some notions of things we've talked about in the past, that our God is a God of spirit, that notion of a referential, that is giving reverence in a way that is unusual. And day by day, human beings are faced with the nihilistic threat that is the loss of life. And when when you're afraid of something, and then some people may not be afraid of death, but most people want to live. And I want to live. And therefore, I say, yes, we should fear God. When Moses got to the mountain with his people, when he escaped Egypt, bringing his people into the promised land, they stopped by the mountain of God, our scripture tells us. And at one point, God says to Moses, prepare my people, I will speak to them now. And when God's presence became evident, the people became so scared, and so much fear fell upon them. They say that the mountains began to shake, and there was such a feeling of fear that came over the people that they said to Moses, no, we don't want to this God to talk to us. Let the God talk to you. Mm-hmm. And you tell us what he said, and we will obey whatever he says. Mm-hmm. I think that there is something to this notion that throughout the annals of history, of the biblical history, that we should fear God.
All right, Bishop. Let's see. And I'm trying to. Okay, we had Messenger Ryan.
Yes, sir. The reason why I say no is just based off of my definition or understanding of what God is. God, as we discussed last week, I define God as my highest ideal. And why should I be afraid of my highest ideal? And in another sense, if God is all things and I am God, God is me, God is all, everybody on this panel, why should I be afraid of myself? And that's my summation of it.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good as far as your summation, and we're gonna go now. And I'm playing here as we speak. I'm still playing with some technology here, but we're going to go now with Bishop Me.
All right. Good evening to all. I say no because the Bible says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But then wisdom tells me that God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son for those of us who believe in him to not perish. For he sent not his Son into the world to destroy the world, but that it might be saved. So when I think about that, and then when God says in Jeremiah, I'm going to make a covenant with you, like the covenant I made with your forefathers. I'm going to be your God and you're going to be my people. And I'm going to dwell in the inward part of you. That make me one with God. Like Ryan said, if I'm afraid of God, I'm afraid of myself. Because I am the very essence of who God is as I walk on planet Earth. So, but I know that, we've been taught in religiosity to say that we fear the Lord. But if the Bible says God is love, if you know not love, you know not God. If it says, that I wish none, that God says, I wish that none not perish, no, not one. Well, that in itself, in its essence, tells me that God has my best interest at heart. So why would I be afraid of my best interests? I should be afraid of something that represents what's not so good to me. I'm going to yield that.
All right. Well, let's see if I can take a turn here. All right. And the turn I'm going to take, and see if I can spotlight me. All right. Okay, and I'm going to quit playing with trying to get us going live on Facebook so that I could just focus on the discussion here. And my definition, and you all have heard my definition, my personal definition of God, and that is the all in all, the everything. And let me preface my comments with everybody is not made to feel the same, to think the same, to act the same. If it was God's will, each and every last one of us would be saying the same thing the same way, but we're not. And that's God's will. And framing my response like that, and as I said earlier, that my definition of God is the all in all, that everything that is a piece of God. And it's similar to what something that Ryan said, similar to something that the Bishop Mia said, that if I am truly identifying myself as a part of the one, as a part of the all, then I have no reason to fear myself. I have no reason to fear that of which I'm a part of. And as you see, not only in my understanding, my definition, my knowledge of who and what God is, but when I acknowledge that God is almighty, that's letting me know that God's in control. And there's nothing that's going to happen to me, nothing that's going to happen to me unless it's God's will. And every time I say that word God, let me define it. Let me remind myself and everybody that's listening to me of what I'm talking about, that is the will of the all, that every little particle in existence working together one force working together to make whatever's going to happen happen. And the peace that I gain out of knowing that tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, the next second from now, that those events, no matter how much I might want them to be, the peace that I gain from knowing that I'm not in control, that this one piece of the whole is not in control, that it's the whole that's in control, the peace that gives me, that same peace that Jesus felt, in my estimation, that Jesus felt when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane and said, not my will, but thy will be done. So that's my reasoning, that's my explanation as to why I'm not afraid of God, that God has a plan for me, and that plan existed before I was conceived, before I was in my mother's womb. And that plan will be carried out. There's nothing that's going to happen that's going to stop that plan. There's nothing that's going to alter that plan. So I find comfort in knowing that I have nothing to be afraid of. Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. And again, that freedom from fear in and of itself is a gift from God. So that's my reasoning, and let me, I might have taken more than my 2 or 3 minutes. So let me come and let's get our panel back on. All right, so now what we're going to do, since we do have a pretty abbreviated program tonight, and we have a not quite as large a panel, we're just going to open it up. And it looks like, Ryan, looks like you had something that you had your hand up, or you just had your hand, okay, it was just there?
Yeah, like just to build on what I was saying earlier, not to leave Bishop Milton out there on the island, as far as being afraid of God.
Mm-hmm.
My definition of God is twofold. It's one that we are all God, right? But then when you take it down a level to the level of instrumentality, that is, when I look at a tree or I look at myself or any other member on the panel tonight, in terms of organization and organizing, when you speak of fearing God, that means to have, like Bishop Milton said, reverence or respect for that organization, that collective that you are a part of, that collective that you give your all to. Right? And so when you have fear of that collective, or that the power of that collective, that to me means that it's a respect that I'm gonna follow the rules and the laws of this collective, and I know that if I step out of bounds of the rules or the laws, then there's punishment that'll be exacted upon me. That organization or that group of persons would have the right to punish me. So if and that's again based off a contract, based off of that agreement between those members. And so you would be right to fear God in that sense, right? God being that highest ideal of that organization or that collective, that group of persons. And so, like I said, it's twofold. On one end, there is nothing to fear. Right? You are that which you are God. And then on the other hand, in terms of the divisions of instrumentalities, if you will, if you step out of line, this is we live in a world of cause and effect. So for every cause there's an effect. And so if I get out of line, then there's something, there's an effect. There's an effect of me going out of line. And so, let's say for instance, if I don't tie my shoe, I might trip. So me having the fear of tripping would cause me to tie my shoe and keep my shoes tied. So I understand, what Bishop Milton is coming from, to have that reverence, to have that respect for the law, if you will. So there's a balance, it's on both sides. So I guess it's not there is so much as being, afraid of, trembling and, incapacitating yourself, not moving forward. It's more of, let me do the right thing type of fear, because this is what I want. This is what I'm striving for. And I know if I say I'm on, this diet or whatever, and I go and eat something that's not on my diet, there's consequences to that. And so me being afraid or me not being interested in experiencing those consequences will cause me to move forward and maintain my diet, or to have reverence for my diet, if you will. And I yield with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Anybody jump in?
So I want to share that when we look at the word love in the Bible today, and we look back before 1969, the word love was very seldomly used. But the word charity, the English word charity, was used. So when we say God is love, it used to say God is charity. And so what happens is there is a play on words and the evolution of words, the etymological variations of words. And when we talk about the word fear of God, I think we have to go back a bit to understand that what the word fear may have meant in the Bible, or what it has come to mean, the word fear today, is not what it meant in the days of the biblical days. So the question then becomes, when we say, do we fear God? If fear in the biblical days, the earlier biblical days, really meant about the love and the reverence of God, and being awestruck by God's greatness, God being Almighty, then and that's what the word in our Bible today really captivates, those concepts. Then I think, in addition to being concerned about judgment and the belief that God is the last judger, God is the one who has the right to take vengeance in whatever way. Sometimes we see God's vengeance being given out or dished out, as Ryan explained, as a consequence of our action. But the problem is that the state of humanity is in such a deplorable condition that even now we don't even recognize when we're not doing right. We don't even recognize when we're not. I had a client who had bought some property and hoarded this property, and now he's dying. And his biggest regret is that he had this property. He had family members who needed a place to stay, and he never let them use it because he wanted to make sure it wasn't torn up. And now he figured, I'm about to die, and my children are fighting over it, and he doesn't know what to do. And he has all this regret upon him. And so if not for the state of humanity at this time, I might agree. If we were in our original state, being called to holiness, to be holy as God is holy, if that was the condition of mankind, I would agree, and my answer in the beginning would be the same as the three of yours. But because I know and I can see the condition of mankind, we better fear God.
Yep.
No. Hey, Bishop.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, wait, Bishop Milton's mic went out.
No, I think he finished. Did you finish, Bishop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Okay. I don't disagree with what Bishop Milton said, but the condition of humanity is as humanity have made it. But the promise to humanity is that they can live heavenly and godly. So because humanity is not meeting the mark of God, doesn't mean that there's a different dispensation. And then when you use, like, say, for instance, if you look at 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul talks about hope, faith, and love. Sometimes you say hope, faith, and love. Sometimes you say hope, faith, and charity. Interchangeable. But here's the deal. The deal is, I don't believe in God like everybody else do. I don't believe in God to fear. I believe in God to be an energy that lives inside of us, that dwells in us and moves. See, the way that the perception that we have of God was imposed upon the Africans by the Romans. Prior to the Romans, the African didn't see God the way, and remember, now, the Romans made themselves God. They made themselves God. And so we got to look at all that. So when we talking about God, even the way you look at God now, it was imposed on you by your slave master. And so our ancestors used to be oneness with nature, oneness with the earth, oneness with everything on the earth. And that was having a balanced relationship with, that's why they say God is spirit, energy. God is not a form or nothing. It's a concept. It's a mindset. It's something that we choose to believe because it helps us to be better to humanity, better to the planet, and better to ourselves. But so if I have to be afraid of that, then I might as well blow my brains out. The challenge for me, I was sharing this today with a young lady. You have to do like Michael Jackson said, you have to look in the mirror, tell that person the truth, that person might be better, so that person can maximize their potential on this side. Because on the other side, we don't know what. If you ever come to a funeral, you'll never hear me talk about they in heaven and all that, because I don't believe in all that. All that's a scam to me. But anyway, I'll yield there. But this is where I come from. My concept of God is totally different from what I've been taught as a child. When I was a child, I did childish things. I thought like a child. I behaved like a child. But now God has matured me. So now I have become a matured being. So I have a whole different concept of God now. But I yield. I'm sorry. Yeah. I took too long.
No, that's fine. And what Bishop Milton, looks like you had something you're ready to say.
No, I was just throwing him a thumb up. He's good.
All right. Well, let me.
That's my bishop now.
Yeah. All right. Ryan, before you have something to say, Ryan?
Yeah.
All right.
Just, I guess to build on what the two bishops were speaking on with regards to the condition of man, and the condition of humanity at this time. Bishop Milton said something that caught my ear. He said, "You don't recognize when we're not doing the right thing." I think that goes back to this whole concept of what's right and what's wrong. If your understanding of what's right and what's wrong has been imposed upon you, something like what Bishop Meade is saying, the fact that you don't act according to that imposition does not necessarily mean that you're wrong. It just means that you're following something that's, I guess, more ingrained within you. Especially if like I mentioned earlier about your highest ideal. What's your highest ideal? If you're working off of that logic, then what you think is right might not be what the greater quote unquote societal interest might perceive as being right. So if you are acting according to your own best interest, who's to say you're right or wrong? But just because I don't fear whatever that imposed morality is, does not mean that I don't fear my own highest ideal, or that I don't respect my own highest ideal. Like I said earlier, I mean, if we are God or what have you, and all of us are, get our understanding directly from God, then what directs us would be that your own highest ideal. So if it appears that humanity is out of line, perhaps humanity needs to take a step back and allow persons or instrumentalities to just do their thing and see how things settle on the back end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is let me jump in because I get a couple minutes here. We've been kind of talking, and I understand, Bishop Milton, as far as the reasoning with mankind, and if mankind is at a certain point in a certain state of being. But let me come back, and I'm gonna keep all of us on the screen instead of spotlighting. Keep all of us, because I think I enjoy that more. I don't know about you guys, but it looks a little bit better with all of us together. This idea and how you defining God, and I want to pick up on something that Bishop Mee had stated, and it actually was one of the talking points, one of my talking points tonight, and that's our discussion tonight is framed partially in the context of whatever it is that we've come to know as being God. And when we refer to the Bible, when we refer to Christianity, when we refer to Judaism, Islam, those religions, there's a definition of God. And we talked about this a little bit last week as far as who or what is God. And that was our discussion topic. And preparing for the show tonight, one of the things that I'm not an eminent scholar when it comes down to ancient African religions, but I have done some studying, and some scholars, some theologians will refer to ancient African religions as animism, whereas they have, in my opinion, they've mischaracterized the beliefs and mischaracterized it in the sense that they put forward that the ancient beliefs were that everything, that there are a million little gods and little gods in everything, the god of the tree, the god of the river, the god of the blade of grass. And I think that's a mischaracterization. But even with that idea, there's nothing that I've read about ancient beliefs, African beliefs, that states that the people were afraid of whatever power it was. It was more of them seeing themselves as being a part of whatever that power is. And in that context, that if indeed we are a part of each other, a part of the one, and if indeed we are all working together for one goal, even though we may not understand how we're working together to that one goal, again, my feeling is that it's a blessing to whatever that goal is, to not be afraid of reaching that goal. And I see we have, and that looks like is that Brother Jeff? Yeah, I see Brother Victor has joined us. How you doing, brother?
Doing well. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I tell you what, I'm glad that you joined. And if you have, just share. This is, the society is a safe space, and as you can see, we have different points of view, different understandings. But it's good that we get to share them because that helps us to grow. So, brother, whatever you can add, it'd be appreciated.
Yeah. First of all, I'm humbled by being here and listening to all of you, so I appreciate your hearts. I wasn't anticipating on saying anything. I just wanted to hear and just learn, But one thing that did strike me, and I believe it was the brother Ryan L. King who shared something that really struck a chord with me. As a former pastor, I really started to delve into some difficult questions that for a very, very long time I stayed away from. And I stood away from those questions basically because of fear, because we're taught in that tradition not to ask, not to question, to take everything on faith. And when we talk about fearing God, one of the biggest things that hit me was the understanding that what scares me about that concept is man's interpretation or definition of God, and the things that have been done throughout history in the name of God. And so I think having a discussion on God as a spirit and as us, as Brother Ryan L. King was saying, it just brings to mind the difference of the Old Testament God and the New Testament God. You look at the Old Testament God that called for the slaughter of the Amalekites. You look at the commands of a quote-unquote loving God. In today's moral society and standard, a lot of what was commanded would be really looked down upon. And so when we talk about agape love, we talk about unconditional love. However, throughout Scripture, we see that there are many conditions that must be met. And so it just makes me think about the fear of God. I think it's more the interpretation of man's idea of God and what's done under that name and under that premise that can hurt and harm society and growth. So I just wanted to share that.
All right, thank you, Brother Victor. Bishop Milton.
Yes, I think the brother hit it right on the nose, and he did make a distinction between the Old Testament and New Testament. But you go to 1 John in the New Testament, chapter 4:16, and it reads something similar to what the brother is saying. So I have an older version. My source for the night study has been the Nave. Oh, I remember I cannot show much with this back screen, but the Nave's topical Bible. And at 1 John 14:4-16, it says that, and we have known and believe the love that God has for us. God is love, and he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in God, and God in him. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness on the day of judgment. Because as he is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love. There you go. There is no fear in love. But perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. So we are tormented by fear, but if we can find ourselves in a perfect state, in a state of holiness, then we have no reason, as Bishop Winnie says, as Brother Ryan has said, we have no reason to fear. If we are in that state of perfect love, and with the coming of Jesus as a revealer of many things of great wisdom, that if we as human beings walking on the earth today can truly walk in that oneness with God, then I concur. But because of the state of man today, and I say this to you, if we're looking from an African-centered standpoint, we cannot see the me without seeing the me in the context of the we. In other words, the hell that I live in, I may not have caused it. By somebody else playing over me with the bus because they were drunk or doing something stupid. See, it's not that it's wrong to drink, but if you drink, causes you to lose your faculties, which causes a harm to me, placing me in hell where I cannot feed my children now. I'm in a state of hell. Condemnation has come unto me Therefore, even though I may have been, as Job, the most perfect and, doing all the right things, I cannot see the me, without seeing me in the context of the we.
All right.
It behooves all of us to fear that which comes and casts judgment upon us.
But Ryan. Yeah, Ryan, looks like you.
Yes. Brother Victor, I appreciate your commentary, your contributions to this discussion. And you use the term conditional, unconditional, right? And so just to speak on that, and with regards to the Old Testament God, New Testament God, things like that, it just brings me back to what I was saying earlier in terms of the distinction between what's universal or what's timeless and what's temporal, right? So something that's temporal, right? It has a place and time, and it can't go outside of those bounds. Its God is that time. If it tries to go out of that time frame, it won't exist. But what's eternal, that exists, through all time. Its God is that universal God, even though the universal God is the God of all things. It's like, for example, right, a liver cell. A liver cell is going to be a liver cell. Its God is the liver. If it tries to be a heart cell, it fails. It can't, right? It just has no place there. But as long as it's being respectful, or as long as it's doing its duty as a liver cell, it's going to prosper. It's going to be great. It's going to fulfill its duty. But again, once it tries to go outside of that, it fails. And just to take it into another realm, the Supreme Court or what have you, people try to bring questions to the Supreme Court of the United States. And sometimes the Supreme Court says that's a political question, right? And what that means is that you have to stay within the realm of the legislature, that are legislated. And so in terms of that issue, the legislator is the God of that issue. It's the highest authority. It's the supreme authority on that issue. But once that issue becomes a constitutional question, then the Supreme Court would have authority over that question. It would be, quote unquote, the God of that question. So it's not to say that one is higher or better than the other. It's just about, as they say, staying in your lane, right? And so if I was an Amalekite or whomever, and my God was whatever it was, and then I went to consorting with an enemy of those people, of my people, then it would be right for that my people to rain holy hellfire on, because I went outside of my commitments, my agreements, or what happened to those people, right? Just to put it in another term, whistleblowers, right? Whistleblowers, when they're on a job for a long time, they might be fearful of that job, right? It's the highest authority, it's who paying the checks, it's who keeping the lights on, et cetera, et cetera. But just so happen one day they may get some realization or some understanding that it's some other power out there that they can rely on, another quote unquote God that they can run to, and now they are free to say whatever they need to say. Right now they can tell that this company been dumping water, been dumping this waste into the river. Now they feel free to say that, but whereas before they were fearful of that God, that job that was providing everything they needed to live on. So there's nothing spooky about it. I guess the perspective or the angle that you're looking at it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ryan. And I've just been given the signal that we have less than 10 minutes of time in the studio here. So what I'm going to do is, if we're going to take about a minute, let everybody get some closing comments, And Brother Victor, you were the last to join us, so we'll take and let you lead us off with our closing comments about a minute.
Again, thank you also very much for this opportunity. I've learned a lot since I came on, and just to piggyback off a little bit of what Brother King was just saying, I think ultimately when we look at religion as opposed to true spirituality and understanding of the essence of God and who God is, it kind of allows us to break away from man-influenced religious ideology, which gives people a different understanding of God, and it can help eliminate this superiority complex when it comes to saying, I have the right God, I'm worshiping, I'm going to the right church, I'm part of the right denomination. And if we want to take it back, we go back to the Dark Ages, we go back to the witch hunts in Salem, and all of these things that were done under the auspices, under the understanding of God was to man. It'll help us come together collectively, regardless of geography, regardless of economic status, and help society grow and evolve into who we really should be.
Right. Thank you, Brother Victor. Before you leave, Brother Victor, what city are you located in, Brother Victor?
I am in Apex, North Carolina.
All right. All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you for joining us this evening. And you're welcome. Look forward to having you continue to share with us on this panel. Let's start off with Bishop Wendy Mee.
Okay, well, I'm thankful again for being a part of this discussion. I know you all see me in my call, and I'm talking because I'm in Houston,
Right.
but I still wanted to be a part of this dialogue because it means that much to me. Of course, my concept of God, because I wish I had more time to speak, because when the brother was talking about the God of the Old Testament, New Testament, it's the same God, it's just who told the story. Because I'm suspect of less than 1/4 of the population of the land on the planet Earth is still not is populated. 1/4. Why would God have to kill a bunch of people to take their land? Because the devil came and wanted it. So anyway, again, if we know that God is love, then it's hard, like he said, it's hard for us to fight, to sell, or to buy into that old concept that God murdered all these people. If God is love, and that the Old Testament, particularly the 10 Commandments, says that you should not commit murder, but then God is a murderer. So it just don't mix. It's a whole lot that we just wasn't told right, and the concept of it, we just have to, what we got to do? The concept of it, I think is have to keep being revisited over and over as we're doing. God bless all the panel members. Brother Bernardus, thank you again for allowing me to come on. Blessings to all.
All right. Thank you, Bishop Mee. Ryan, a minute. One minute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Peace to everybody on the panel again, to everybody that's tuned in, wherever you are, whenever you are. Again, thank you for investing that attention into building with us on this evening. And again, simply, like I said, my understanding, my definition of God simply is my highest ideal. And if that's my highest, and if that's my understanding of what God is, I can't be afraid of myself. Well, I don't like to use the word can't, because I can do all things as God can do all things. But I choose not to be afraid of myself. If there's some apprehension, it's something to embrace, because it's an aspect or a part of myself that I need just a little more clarity on. And I shall not be afraid of the unknown. Peace.
All right. Thank you, Messenger Ryan. Bishop Milton.
Yes, sir. I am afraid to run that red light, because I believe that if I run the red light, another car coming from a different direction might just tee me and take me out. This is how I fear God. I'm afraid that the biblical principles and the high moral ideal of the God that I serve, the God of the various scriptures, not only the Bible, but the Holy Quran and other Eastern scriptures, books of great wisdom and understanding and knowledge, those that have been handed to us through the angels of history, and the African proverbs and all of that Africanity that had been built up through the centuries, that knowledge and understanding of the ways of the world. That if I do not understand moral law, if I do not understand human law, that is, even the laws we pass at a city council, and I do not respect those things, then I am subject to live in a condemnation or some damnation, and I don't want that for me nor for the person who might be adversely affected by my disobedience of such utterances. And therefore, God comes, although in spirit, it is the greatest of parameters that allows us to stay on the mainland and allows us to stay in the main course of life where we can be good for us and for others. So God bless you. Thank you, Messenger Knowledge. It has been a pleasure tonight. All of you panels, great to work with you.
Right, Bishop. Thank you, Bishop. And I'm going to speak fast because I keep giving the signal that we just have 2 minutes left in the show. I'll touch on a couple of things. One, this discussion tonight reminds me of a discussion that I had a little bit earlier with Messenger Tainov coming out of North Carolina, and that is the discussion about on this show. A lot of times we will hear different people using different language, and when we start the discussion, it sounds like they're coming from different places, and they are. But at the end of the day, when we start opening up our ears, we can hear that we're really saying similar things. Once we get past that, and I think Brother Victor touched on it, once we get past that, well, my way is the right way. Once we get past that, we start saying that, hey, man, that sounds pretty similar to what I said a few minutes ago. It sounds similar to what he said a few minutes ago. So that's just something I wanted to just share that. And there's a couple of things before I forget. Again, our condolences to the Williams family and Messenger Corey Levier, his loss and his family's loss. But picking up again a couple of things here, and that is Bishop Milton highlighted something that it's a dilemma to a certain extent that we have, because when we communicate with each other on this plane, in this physical plane, we are identifying individuality. We're identifying that you're a separate being from me. And if we're living on that plane and communicating on that level, then there will be reason for us to have fear. Reason that what I'm going to do is going to hurt you, what you're going to do is going to hurt me. But when we're operating on that level of that oneness, that true oneness, and Bishop Milton, you touched upon this, that oneness where there is nothing but love. As I close out, because I've got the signal, everything that we talked about tonight, this whole show, one purpose, and that one purpose is to deliver the message that God is Almighty. And I pray, as we close out, I pray that this upcoming week, that God Almighty blesses you and yours with peace. Peace, panel. Good night.